The all-new agent-looking glass is really the platform for Homequest going into the future. We're just releasing it, and it has a couple of really powerful pieces to it. Let's take a look at the Market Analyzer piece. So I'm going to, under Search Listings tab now, there's an additional link or section in addition to the classic and advanced search that you're used to, Agent Looking Glass, which really is going to be the future of the application going forward. So you're probably familiar with this. This is what you've been sending your clients for over a year now, the Client Looking Glass. And the component that I want to take a look at right now is the Market Analyzer. So if you click on the Market Analyzer, you'll notice you have a picker here. We're going to take a look at a section of kind of the inner core of Portland. So I'm going to zoom in a little to get to the neighborhood view that I'm wanting to get, and I'm going to select this picker, which will highlight. So now what I'm going to do is add the neighborhoods I'm interested in looking at. So you'll see it change colors. Irvington, Alameda, Grant Park, Hollywood, Beaumont, Wilshire, Laurelhurst, Hawthorne, Mount Tabor. I'll fill in here as well. Alright, so let's say that those are the areas I'm interested in looking at. I just select them, and then I simply hit View. Now it's running a very sophisticated query here, so it's a lot of data, and it can take up to 30 seconds or so. I'm going to go ahead and scoot this over. And what it's doing is it's looking at the historical data for supply numbers, the number of active listings, the number of sold listings, the turnover or absorption rate, and I'm going to go back a little bit further. I'm going to go back to 2005 and refresh it. So it's going back now to 2005. So we're going to get 5, 6, and 7. Plus January of this year of 08. Again, looking at the supply numbers, the active listings, the demand numbers, the solds, the interaction between supply and demand, or the turnover, and then the median price, so the 50% median, 75th percentile, 25th percentile, the average price, and then also the list price versus the sold price. Going back a few years, this takes 30 seconds. We're working on this to make it faster. So what we have here is a view of these neighborhoods and supply and demand numbers. So these blue bars here, this is the supply. And what we're looking at, any individual house that was for sale. So if there was a house, here's January this year, in these areas right here, if a house was for sale even for one day, it's counted as one. So any attempt of a house for sale, 590 attempts against 55 sold. So you can see back in 05 when things were really smoking and turning over in this market. I mean, for Portland, this is really cranking. We had 40%, of the market being absorbed or turning over each month. You can see obviously the supply numbers kind of gone up, although it's fairly close to what it was last year, and you can see the demand numbers. This dip right here is a seasonal variation. We see this every year around the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving time, and then down again here. So you can clearly see on the absorption or the turnover rate where each year it's kind of stepping down, and we ended this year at 10% versus last year. We were a little bit better than this. So it looks like we're down a little bit. So we'll see what happens with the springtime now as we our seasonal curve, we expect this to come up. If we go down a little further, we're starting to get into how that's affecting the prices. So this is the median price, the 50th percentile median price, and you can see how that curve for this area. This is the 75th percentile, so this is kind of the higher end, what that's doing, and the lower end, and then the average. The last graph is taking a look at the sold price versus the original list price. You can see when it was really cranking in '05, there were actually a few months where for this area the average sold price was above the average list price. So things were going for at or above asking, and that's gradually kind of tapered off. And now we're in an environment where in this area it's still very close. It's within 5% of asking price. So very, very comprehensive information about what the market's actually doing. It's amazing. So let's take a look at, in Portland, for the Portland market, what we just looked at is one of the more robust areas in town. We can also look at, you can save these snapshots. So I've got a little library here of places that I've looked at and I kind of keep track of. So I'm going to go to another area of town, Cooper Mountain, which is more of a suburb area. Most of it's, was built fairly recently, especially compared to where we were just looking in the inner core of Portland, where most of the stuff was built, pre-40s, and this is mostly 90s and 2000s out here. So we'll open this up and see what happens. Again, it's a little slow right now. We're working on making this faster, but it's looking at a lot of information to generate these graphs. And we're doing it in real time, so it allows you to pick and choose whichever neighborhoods, not just the ones that we pre-format for you. So again, I'm going to go back a little bit further here and refresh this. We've been using this now for about 3 or 4 months with clients, and it's really changed the way we look at the market. When somebody asks us, what's the market like? Our answer is, well, it depends on where you're looking, because Portland is really acting like a lot of different micro markets. There are some places where the market is very, very bad, at least from a seller's standpoint, a lot of inventory and very few buyers available. And there's some other areas where it's still very, very strong, and a good house is going almost, right when it comes on the market, and sometimes there's multiple offers. So it really depends, and we need to know this as agents to advise our clients. So here's an area that is performing much worse. Again, back in '05, we had, supply and demand numbers that were in that 40% range, but you can see the inventory really pulling away here in terms of supply, and the demand very, very low. So we're down in the single digits, 4, 3, 6, and what we're hoping to see is this number come up and get kind of a more robust market. But we're seeing now then here where the list price versus the sold price versus the original list price going lower and lower as a trend. And here we've got actually a downward curve on all 3 of these median indicators. And the data points kind of vary quite a bit, so you have to somewhat normalize these curves and look at them that way. But we have a clear trend of things pointing downward here, severely downward here, down into the low single digits, and a lot of inventory, not a lot of demand. If I list a house in this neighborhood right here, if I list a house in here right now, I need to know that these are the market dynamics, so I can advise my client that we're competing for just a handful of buyers in this environment, and unless they're priced very, very competitively, there's really no chance that they're going to sell the house. Whereas if I'm in another area that has a very high turnover rate, maybe we can get a little bit more aggressive with the price, depending on their time frame and whatnot. So once you start using this market analyzer, it almost seems negligent not to use it now that it's available, because the view that it gives us of what the market's really doing in the areas that are really relevant to either our sellers or buyers is just it's just very good visibility. And we can set this up to be viewed by our clients. So we could save this to one of our clients. See, displayed a client here. We could display this to one of our clients. So as they're looking at their looking glass, they can also be viewing what the market's doing, and we can set that up for them.